Hello, everybody. Happy Friday. We made it to another week, and you are tuning in to an episode of Tisha Talks Live at 10:45. I have got my good friend from Cary, North Carolina. This is Brian Ondrako, and he has a company called Just Get Started LLC. I've had the pleasure of being on his podcast. He's been on some of my live streams. We just go way back. He's a fellow entrepreneur, author, all that good stuff. So, Brian, thank you so much for being here live on Tisha Talks. It's so great to have you.
Thanks, Tisha. And by the way, your graphics and stuff, the lead-in, unbelievable. I mean, upping your game. I love it. So, this is awesome.
A friend of mine just asked me about an animation company, and I said, I use that animation everywhere, and I love that it's like this. They even got my laugh down, and that's not me laughing, but I'm like, dang, You got my giggle down in that. So awesome. Kudos to the team that did that for me. Yeah. I'm happy to give that recommendation. If you guys are like, I want an animation, I want that stuff, but that's going to help you stand out. If you can believe this, Brian, a friend of mine's like, I don't think you should do it. You should just go the traditional route. And from my story, I'm like, I don't go the traditional route. I try to figure out a way to stand out and make it memorable. Yeah.
As Seth Godin says, be remarkable, right? How does traditional work out for most people? You kind of fall into the crowd,
You know what's funny? So I'm going to share, and you probably saw some pictures of this. Wonder Woman's kind of been like, I keep talking about Wonder Woman because it was Superhero Day not too long ago. And I got the opportunity to host the American Marketing Association Awards on Wednesday. And I was the MC, and I could just wear black dress, black heels, like just go totally traditional. And I was like, I'm going to kick it up a notch. So blue dress, Wonder Woman kicks.
I saw those. Those are stylish.
They came from China. It took a long time to get here, but they arrived just in time. And I'll just tell you this, I probably had a good 25, 30 people come up to me that day just to talk about my shoes.
Yeah.
And so that's why you don't do the traditional. And today, I'm so excited about this. We're talking about finding the courage to start and find your happiness, or gaining the courage to start. And so many people, if you're tuning into this on LinkedIn, on Facebook, or on YouTube, and you have a question for us, we'd love for you to chime in, send us a comment, or if you just want to say hello, or if you have a question for myself or for Brian. But I really love this topic because so many of us have these great ideas in our head, Brian, and we're like, I want to start, but I have no idea how to do that. So I'd like to ask you that first question of, what would be some tips for people who have this brilliant idea but are just like afraid? They don't know how to get it going. Would you give them some recommendations?
Besides the simplest of just do it today, like just start. But I mean, I think this is a deeper kind of conversation within ourselves of like, I think about all the self-limiting beliefs, the things I learned growing up that kind of stifled me from having the confidence to move forward. And it took me a long time. I'm 39. I'm proud to say that. And I look at probably it took into my late 20s, early 30s before my mind started to change into a different direction, thinking kind of on the path that I'm on now and the purpose that I'm on. But it took a while because I was so enthralled in this bubble that I grew up in, small town in upstate New York, just kind of the people I was around. And not that they were bad people. It was just a different mindset. And so I would say the first thing is we need to sit back and first, I'm really big on this. And this is something I've been talking about a lot recently is, we talk a lot about happiness, and that's something I'm obviously big on, is finding happiness. But the first thing we have to do is we have to define what happiness is, right? So your happiness, your definition is different than mine. This is the same with success. When someone says like, oh, so-and-so is successful. Well, are they? How do you define success? Is that money and cars and fame, or is that freedom to be able to hang out with their family or take vacations or work on projects or whatever it is, right? So I think the first step to getting started, obviously, besides like, hey, if you want to run a marathon, then go walk, around the block today type stuff. Sure, do that. Yeah. But I think partly it's sitting with yourself and defining what happiness is, because it's like leaving Europe and saying, oh, I'm going to go west somewhere. Okay. What does that mean? Okay. Oh, I'm going to go to whatever, Boston. Okay. That's a little more direct. And now you start starting to to give a little more clear path when you understand actually what happiness is for you. So I think if you start there, it gives you an opportunity at least slowly move in that direction. And then you start, listen, we're all making it up as we go.
Yeah. We're all flying the plane as we
exactly. As you're building it, right? It's kind
right.
of, it's the same thing. So, and everyone has their own path, their own journey, their own whatever. But if you don't know what happiness means to you, at least for today's definition, it may be different next year because it will as you change and evolve. But if you don't know today's definition, it's really hard to start because you're always going to be using those past definitions that you had from a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever it is. So that would be my first spot to start. And then we could certainly go deeper into other avenues maybe.
I really love that you said that because like in the work that I do, people want to just get going. They want to get going. And I'm like, wait, let's go backwards. Let's really lay that foundation because that is going to be the premise of everything we do from this point on. I want to know what lights you up. What's your legacy? What are the things that you enjoy? So we really do a lot of that self-discovery. And so many people don't take the time to do that. So that's such a great question of what is your happy? Realizing that it can be different for every single one of us. Just because you want to go live in Bali doesn't mean I want to live in Bali.
Right.
Just because you want to have a yacht doesn't mean I want to have a yacht. Like there's so many things that could say, this is my definition of complete happiness. Well,
it's
then
interesting.
You can start figuring it out what you need to do.
And you're right. And here's the thing that's interesting. And this comes to a professional level. I have this conversation with folks all the time about career. And you know, if someone's like pissed off about their job or what company they're at or anything like that, my first question is, well, then why are you still there? Well, I have to provide for my family, whatever, you know, the thing is. But what's interesting is when folks are looking for jobs and they're like, oh, I want to go to this company. Well, why? The answer sometimes is not always a great answer. It's, oh, I might be making a few more dollars or I might be this or that. Rarely is it about, again, this is happiness for me. So I'm going to go ahead and take this job because it's a specific role. This is also goes with career change. This is something. So I'll kind of talk down a couple passes. I'm answering this because I think it's important. You know, I started off my career. If we talked 15 years ago, I was going to be the top golf instructor in the country, right? I was a PJ professional. I went to Methodist University, did the golf management program there. I was going to teach golf. And that's how I started my career off. I had a teaching business in Raleigh. I started teaching the 06, 07, 08, you know, those type of years. And then I was managing a driving range for a few years. And it was really around that, you know, 09, 2010, where I started to like question myself of like, is this it? And I started to see a very, and just I think because I'm up on technology and stuff, I started to see a very different opportunity for golf instruction. You know, a lot of people were going to YouTube. That was becoming popular. You know, the way they were taking lessons and receiving the instruction was a little different than it was in years past. So I started to look at like, where's instruction going? Is this something I want to do? Right. Plus I was, you know, goal was to start a family, you know, within the coming years. So it was like, am I going to be out here on nights and weekends and holidays and all that? So for me, and this was a huge change because my identity was always golf. I was always the golf guy with my friends, with family, whatever. I was the golf guy. So changing and leaving that was really challenging, but I started to read. Now I didn't know it then, by the way. As I'm talking now, it's easy to say like, oh yeah, I was defining happiness back then. I didn't know what the hell I was doing back then. But
who knows what we're talking about back then?
But it just it happened to work out where I was really questioning myself and what I was going to do. And I realized, I said, okay, what do I really, you know, want to do? Well, one of the things I knew was I was very entrepreneurial. This goes back to when I had a paper route when I was 11. And this goes back to just doing some fun stuff. I was thinking about some stuff my brother and I used to do when we were kids. And even thinking about like, you know, my brother started a couple businesses, like some of the things, enjoying what he was doing in those conversations. So again, I kind of knew that, but I said, okay, if I'm entrepreneurial, that doesn't mean I have to just do golf. That means I can do other things. Yeah. And it started to expand my mind a little bit. So I'll pause there, but that, you know, that was really where I started to learn as I connected the dots looking back, that it was really important to define where I wanted to go in order to actually make the proper decisions.
Yeah, no, I love that. I want to give a shout out to Michelle. Michelle and I go way back too. She's been involved in a lot of my journey. Michelle saying, "This is wonderful. The
Hey, Michelle.
definition of happiness changes." I know we have some people on Facebook. Hey, thanks so much for the love. And some people on LinkedIn tuning in right now. So thanks again. If you have questions or if you want to jump into the conversation with me and Brian, by all means, send us a comment, send us a chat. Brian, I would say that most of us are going to come across that time in our life where we're like, I don't know if I want to do the things I want to do. I don't know if this is what I'm supposed to be doing anymore. And you really, I know your story. We talked about it numerous times about golf.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, I was known as the golf guy. And how is it that I break that stigma of everybody knows me for this and I start to change and be Brian? Like, I don't want to just be known as this person. I ran a mom entrepreneurs group for years. Michelle was part of that group. I was an event manager, event management. I ran an event management company. I had a marketing company, but I'm like, those things don't define who I am. Those are the things that I do, but it's not who Tisha is. And it's really, really key that we figure out who is Tisha, who is Brian, who's Michelle, who's Jonah. Shout out to Jonah Gray, who's also on here too. But we got to figure out who are we, and then go in that direction. And I think that this is such a great topic of figure out what makes you happy, what makes you you. And then the answers become a little more clearer too as we go along.
Yeah, and part of this too, I wrote a blog article. Actually, I have a podcast coming on this, so it's top of mind for me. Is around like being weird, and we you know, and I knew this. I know you have kids. Like, you know, my son, he would define. He says weird, and his friends say weird, but really what they mean is different. And they don't understand it at that age. But the reality is we're all different. Now, we're very similar in a ways. I mean, humans in general are very similar in a large degree, but we have so many vast differences with personalities and those type of things. But what happens a lot of time is growing up, and this is how I was growing up, is no, you go to school, you get a job, start a family, do this, you know, whatever it is. And it's always like, okay, if you're not, it's kind of like the, if you ever watch sci-fi movies, like in the future, right? Everyone's wearing the same outfit. It's kind of like if you're not in that same line, then you're just weird. You're out of, I think it's good to be weird. And I think if we embrace our weirdness and we say, you know what, this is actually who we are. And this is what I want to do. That's what gave me the confidence. It took a long time, but I was like, wait a minute, I actually like writing. I like to, you know, from an audio, I like to interview and talk to people. That's where podcasting started. And so I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go and start doing it. Where before I was so scared to do it because I had I was like, oh, what are people going to think? This is not what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to just be kind of shut up, get in the background, just go through life, you know,
like everybody else. And I love this. Jonah, I want to point this out too. Great comment. Not being weird is weird. And then he also says this. He says, love the name of the company. This guy is authentic and I love it. Two amazing people trying to create change. Can't get better than that. Thank you so much, Jonah. Jonah was on my live stream last Friday. You probably saw because I tagged you both in a clip today. But we were talking about the power of harnessing connection. You know, harnessing the power of connection. And it's so true what you guys are saying. I love this because you're going to gravitate toward people that are very like-minded. Like they're weird, you're weird. Let's have a weird party. Like it is what it is. Like, so I really like what you're saying, Brian, because I was definitely in that mindset too of finish college, go get the job, go have the family, be bored to tears, doing the same old every single day. And I'm like, I want to shake it up a little bit. And I'm going to do things I want to do. And I've gotten people who are like, you're really going to do that? Heck yeah, I'm going to do that. Like, I love being that defy the odds kind of person, you know, just watch me from the sidelines as I make this happen. And if it fails, okay, I did it. I tried it. It's okay. Moving on.
But think about this. And this is really interesting as we all, especially folks that are listening, let's say anyone that's late 20s and older. Throughout our life, all the groups that we're associated with are all kind of, I'm trying to think of the best word to use. They're almost like materialized artificially. right?
Yeah.
We have play groups as kids. Well, it's probably our parents' friends, or it's family, it's family, cousins, whatever. Then as we get older in school, where there's only those kids that we're in school with, maybe some of them look like us, maybe someone plays similar sports, however, kids kind of get in those mold. And then even as you go into college, like if you're in a fraternity or sorority, right, you're kind of stuck in that group. It's only really until we get into our late 20s, probably, that we actually start defining our own groups. And we are, so this is what you're talking about is I know I still have, I'm very fortunate, by the way. And every time I tell this story, most people are like, Brian, that is kind of interesting.
Yeah,
Some of my best friends that I mean, some of them I went to preschool with. Now, we weren't really friends back then. We didn't know, but I've known some of these guys for like 35 years, all from upstate New York, lived down here in North Carolina. And we all came down for different reasons. So we catch up, a good amount of time, but I don't see them as much as I used to see them. I have a whole different core group of friends here in the area that I've built over time. But I also have a group of friends that a lot of them I've never even met in person. They've been virtual over the last 2, 3, 4 years. But it's because of what you're talking about is they're extremely supportive. They're very entrepreneurial. They've started businesses. They have these very far-fetching ideas that they want to, kind of cure the world of and really change the world. And that's why we get along and we can push each other and we can challenge each other and we could support each other. And it's a different group than I used to have growing up because I didn't know any better, So I think as we start defining our happiness and what we want, it also defines the people we should be around or we should want to be around,
Oh, I hands down agree with that. I'm not friends with all the people I was years ago. Like, I think that, especially being an entrepreneur, you want to surround yourself with people who are going through some similar stuff. Like, if I have a conversation with someone who's in a 9 to 5, they don't understand my world. They don't get it. They don't understand why I would take that risk or why I would want to do this particular thing. So it's hard to have that conversation. Not to say that we're not still going to be friends, but it's just like, okay, you're in this category for me, and these are the people that I want to be around too. Yeah. So I like what you're saying there. I want to just point out another comment that Jonah put on as failing is the process to success, and that's very true. So I want to get into another question because this has been going around in my head with several people. I work with a lot of startups, a lot of people who perhaps have lost their jobs and are now finding themselves entrepreneurs, and they're going through the motions, right, Brian? They're going through the motions, just like all of us are going through the motions, but they have this fear. And a lot of us are like fear of success, fear of money, but I'm going to define this as the fear of when. The fear of when. And I say that because so many of us are in this instant gratification of, I want it now. It has to have happened already. And if it's not here now, then I don't know what I'm doing. And now I have to jump ship and start all over and do something different. Michelle even put up here on one of her comments, soul searching now. I think a lot of us do a lot of soul searching, right? We're doing a lot of that self-discovery mode of what makes us happy. But I want to get in that topic with you of this fear of when. And what kinds of advice would you give to someone who's just, they want it, but it's not coming fast enough, and they're like really saying I should just jump ship?
It's a really good question. I think about this a lot because, I'm, sometimes you post content or you put a podcast out, or again, even one of the books or something. It's like, why aren't more people interacting today, insert whatever day or whatever it is. So, oh my gosh, I go through this so much. I think partly it comes back to perspective, and one of the things really is, and this is with fear in general, is knowledge. How much knowledge do you have on this? Because let's take a random example. I don't know why I'm thinking about it right now, but like think of like Harry Potter, right? So J.K. Rowling, right? We could look at all the success of that series, right, and the movies and all this stuff, but we don't realize now she's told her story a little bit, but like you don't realize those years and years of heartache and writing and throwing stuff away and not getting picked up by editors and publishers and all this stuff, right? You don't see that. It's hard to see. So you see kind of a finished product, and we think like, oh my gosh, why am I not there? Well, because you didn't go through the 30 years it took to get to that point, Right. So I think partly it's, gaining knowledge on. So if you're like saying, because generally it's not, I'm not getting ahead. It's, Tom Smith is doing more than me. Why is that? I I thought I started after him as an example, right?
Yeah.
Tom
Yeah.
Smith is the fictional character here. But like,
okay, Tom.
yeah. So if you think about that, right? Well, then what is Tom doing? Let me gain more knowledge on what is his background. By the way, did we all get lucky breaks in life? Think of all the serendipity that happens. No one that's listening in can say that they didn't get lucky breaks here or there, or things worked out. I was telling the
Mhm.
story on a podcast the other day where I got laid off at a job because they closed the office here in Raleigh. But because I got laid off, it worked out where like within 2 weeks, I got hired at a local startup. The owner, the husband and wife there, they've been mentors for me for the last 7 years. And I would
Mhm.
never have met them if that didn't happen. So we all get these opportunities. One that comes to mind, I'm talking in a few different things, but I think it's interesting. Like one that comes to mind around this is like, think of Tom Brady, right? So
Yeah.
I'm a 49ers fan. I'm proud to say that. And, but think of like Tom Brady, right? Now, Tom Brady's considered the greatest of all time and
Mhm.
well-deserved title based on what he's done as we're talking in 2022.
Yeah.
But go back, if Drew Bledsoe doesn't get injured, he may not even get the opportunity. And who knows if Adam Vinatieri misses that field goal in the Super Bowl, they don't win. Do they reassess that? We don't know what happens. It happened to work out as it did,
Mhm.
right? But all of these things happen one way or another. So you can look at, hey, maybe so-and-so got a lucky break, or maybe you haven't gotten your lucky break yet. But if you keep failing, going back to Jonah's thing, if you keep failing, if you keep trying and give yourself that opportunity, you ultimately start falling into some of these things a little bit more, right? You start
Right.
uncovering, by the way, too. Is this working? Is this not? Do I actually like this? So I think it's hard to just say, hey, if you do this, this is the problem with a lot of advice I see online these days. Like, oh, do this and you're going to be, no, that's not true. Because
Yeah.
everyone's life is so different.
Mhm.
Everyone has different things going on. And that's why continuing to persevere generally is the recipe for success. Consistency, perseverance. It's not one thing. It's keep doing things and keep moving forward. And
Mhm.
eventually you may run into what you would consider success or happiness as you define it. Going back to what we talked about earlier,
Yeah, I shared last week that I have a really great mentor. I met him in the sauna at the gym.
Okay.
He's
It's an
long
interesting
story.
meeting point. All right.
Yeah. Well, we just talked about this, that your connections happen anywhere. You can meet people anywhere. He happens to be about 75 years old now, but he's been with me through crap. He's been through,
Yeah.
been through it with me through my high moments, my lowest moments, my dark moments. And he's like, Tisha, keep your head on straight. The breakthrough is coming. And I know you're 39. I've got you beat by a few years, Brian. But he would always tell me, he's like, when you hit your 40s, holy cow, watch out. Like things are just going to start to just move and shake. And honestly, I can't say that. Like I hit my 40s and like more opportunities came, but it wasn't because I stopped doing all the work. I've been doing the work for a long, long, long time.
Yeah.
It's tiring, but it's worth it, especially when you get there and you're like, this is what it was all about. This is why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. This is what makes me happy. So,
and I think too, one of the things that's important though, that I've discovered, especially in the last probably year more, I would say even more, is how important we always want more. It's always looking at the distance. There's the mountaintop. Let me get to it.
Yeah.
But what I've been focusing on so much more, especially the last year, is now. Like involved in this conversation. This is the most important thing now. Not thinking about, oh, what am I going to do tomorrow? It doesn't matter.
Right.
So I've just been such a big believer on, we always want these extra things. Again, when's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? Are we forgetting to enjoy what we have right now?
Right.
Are we forgetting to enjoy? And by the way, does that attitude by not enjoying today ultimately take us away from maybe doing things better, have more enthusiasm, have more passion for what we're involved with? And ultimately, again, it leads back to happiness. Are we happier? Or are we always kind of just a little less than happy because we're like, oh, I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. Well, gosh, if you look like where you're at today, I would say you would say this as well.
Yeah.
The 29-year-old Brian would be like, holy crap, dude. I can't believe you've done all this stuff with the books and podcasts and just the amount of people you've helped and what have you. just because you decided to make a change and do that. That 29-year-old self would have been like, that didn't even recognize that person, just like I wouldn't recognize looking back.
Yeah.
But if I'm so worried about looking forward, I can't focus on today. And am I happy with where I'm at today? Because I'm a hell of a lot happier than I was many years ago. So that's all that matters to me.
Right.
You know?
Hey, so you mentioned football, and I'm a Cardinals fan.
I know.
Although, although I was at the game, since you're a 49ers fan, I was at the game when it was still at ASU Sun Devil Stadium when Steve Young got injured playing the Cardinals. I was at that game because my husband was a big 49ers fan, and Steve Young was like everything.
Steve Young, by the way, Steve Young's a great example. If Montana doesn't get injured, right? If he doesn't have his back injury, who knows if Young gets the opportunity? Because that was always the big thing, was like Young was there, and Young was a great player, but it was like, when is he going to get the opportunity? Well, Montana gets injured, then they trade him away to Kansas City, and all of a sudden Young has his start. So again, these things happen. Yeah. Think about all the talented players out there that don't get that opportunity, or maybe they get drafted onto a bad team and they don't have good coaching, they don't have good support systems, and ultimately they go down a bad, so it can happen both ways. A lot of this just comes down to, perspective on it, knowing where you're at. Again, where do you want to go? And am I enjoying the ride along the way? Or am I always kind of just, again, that whole thing of like not happy because I'm not doing more? Well, again, a year ago, would you have been happy to be in the spot you are today? And if the answer is yes, then you should be happy,
I am. I'm miles from where I was when I was in my 20s, for sure.
Yeah.
I want to bring this up. Royce Blake, he's joining us out here in Arizona. He says, I like this phrase, to keep motivated. Some will, some won't. So what? Someone's waiting. Yes. These little smiley glass emojis. Yes, I agree. So I was sharing, my football story is, I used to work for the Sun Devil ticket office when I was in college. And so the late coach, Bruce Snyder, Pat Tillman, like those guys always were in the office. I got to see them quite a bit. And they gave us a shirt that said, one day at a time. And I still have the shirt. I showed it a couple weeks ago when it was Pat Tillman's death anniversary. And I just really love that statement. And like you said, like I really changed my whole mindset, my whole day in this perspective of, when you're grateful, that happiness plays in. When you're happy, you can look at everything around you and say, I'm so grateful for all of these things. I'm so grateful for being on this live stream with Brian and connecting with him. And dang, Brian, I don't even know how we connected, but I know we connected.
I'm trying to remember.
I
think someone introduced us.
I think so. But just all of these great people, like people that are spending their time with us, Jonah and Royce and Michelle and other people who were tuning in, like that. Thank you for being in the moment with us. Thank you for making this part of your day. Yeah. So I love that. I love that. Like, stop looking at the future. Like, the future's going to come, but just focus on today. Make today the most impactful day you can. Meet the people, do the things that you need to do, and you will start to get to that moment. You will.
And this is actually a good point around, you asked the first question of like, hey, what could you do to get started? Right.
Yeah.
I am not one that writes, like if you said, Brian, what's your goal in 5 years? I can't tell you a goal. I don't put that, on there. But what I can tell you again is defining happiness with a couple key terms like freedom and autonomy and some of those type of things that lead me down a path to where I want to go. Mm-hmm. Right. But if I look at it from a standpoint of getting started, this is where consistency comes in. If you focus on today, right? So again, I always like to use the fitness because I think it's so relevant across the board. So let's say you want to, I look at what I've done in CrossFit the last 4.5 years. And I know the first rule of CrossFit is you must talk about CrossFit. So
you must.
But whatever it is, running a marathon, whatever, right? But the reason I wanted to mention that is you wouldn't go out and run a marathon today.
No.
You would go out, let's say you're running around the block or you're running a mile, right? And you're building on it. You would do that over a period of time. So even if that goal is, hey, I want to run a marathon next year, you have to start today and you have to keep moving. It's the same kind of thing. We've heard this for years, right? One step at a time, keep moving forward. It's literally consistency, small incremental steps every day, the mundane moment. I love the, Tim Urban says this, like the mundane Tuesday. That's really where most of our life is, right? we're rarely on the highest of high moments. It's kind of the mundane average Tuesday is what we live. So, or Friday that we're, recording this. But the reality is if we think like that and say, all right, then what do I want to accomplish today? Right. What do I want to do today and get, maybe it's with the marathon. Okay, let me go out and run a mile today. Or let me do whatever it is, maybe to get prepared. Okay, and then I'm gonna do it tomorrow. Yep. And I'm only gonna focus on accomplishing the task tomorrow because we're have you ever read Atomic Habits?
I haven't, no.
I would recommend that to everyone. I think that's one of the best books I've ever read by James Clear. But he talks about these systems, and he talks about like, instead of saying, hey, I want, again, this goal next year to run a marathon, I want to act like someone that runs marathons. So imagine having that mindset of someone that runs marathons. Well, what are they going to do? Well, they're going to eat better, right? They're going to get sleep. They're going to go out and actually run. Maybe they do some other accessory work for stretching or whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? So they're going to start acting like someone that runs marathons versus saying, hey, I got that goal in the distance. And then what happens is you go a couple of days, you don't do it. Then you get discouraged and that, and now you actually lose focus. Yeah. But instead of every day just showing up and saying, all right, I'm going to try to actually act like this person that's going to run a marathon, you have an opportunity to at least do something that day. It might not be the greatest day in the world, but at least something,
Right.
Anyways.
Hey, at least something. I took my dogs on a walk this morning and my son's like, but that wasn't going to the gym. I'm like, hey, but it was something. It was some kind of exercise. It was some kind of, getting out there and doing something good for body and health. So
yeah. And I think figuring out what works for you, like, I've put these like morning and bedtime routines together because I knew personally I needed to put some guardrails around my time and some of the things that I wanted to do to kind of get moving forward. Everyone might not do that. They may do their own things. But again, that's going back and figuring out what works for you and then actually showing up and doing it,
Absolutely. Okay, well, I know we are kind of running low on time, so I want to give you a shameless plug. But first of all, I want to tell you, I really, really, really loved your book. Thank you so much for sending me a copy of the magically magnificent, mysterious mind, all those M's in there. Yep, you got it right there. It was amazing, Brian.
Let's see if that's going to show up. There we go.
Right there. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, the illustrations, and then you rhymed, which I'm like, oh my gosh, Brian. Okay, he's a rhymer, he's a poet, all these good things.
Well, I grew up on 90s rap music, so I was never going to be a rapper, but that's where I got that. I joke, but that's actually why I always enjoyed like rhyming. Like you're singing after the music, the CDs back then, right? You're listening to the CD, and that's why both my children's books, I'm actually illustrating my third book right now. They're all rhyming books. I just enjoy the rhyming. So.
Oh, I love it. I love that so much.
Thank you for saying that. This one was, Luke's first round of golf was a special one because going back to what we were talking about before, like I wrote like most of that when my son was born in 2012. But I shelved it for many years because I was like, who am I to be a children's book author, And I was so like fearful of getting it out there and what people were going to think. So I literally put it away for 4.5 years. Didn't touch it. So that was a special one to get that out. But this one, because it's all about, as positive mindset, happiness, making good choices. So anyways, that's what I want to instill in the youth that, if you think that way, it's going to make for a better life. So I appreciate you saying that.
Oh, so good. I highly recommend it for all the kids out there. I was saying it should be in like all the libraries. The kids really should be reading it. And there's meditation.
A little meditation. I know as a self-published author, it's tough. It's a grassroots kind of, but this to your question earlier, like, man, you got to grind. But again, as I send it out to other folks or people see it online, who knows, it sparks and it'll get in the right hands. I think it's a good enough book. Again, I know you've read it. I think it's a good enough book with a positive message that once it does get out there, it will spread. It's just going to take time. I don't have a big publisher, so it's just is what it is,
Like anything, everything takes time. Yeah. All right, well, I'm going to throw this up there too, but tell us where people can find you, what you're working on next. I know you mentioned you're in book number 3. So when do you have that coming out? Like, what's the expected date for that?
I don't know yet. I'm just starting to illustrate. So a couple things. So, again, thanks everyone for joining. This is awesome just to get to talk to you again. So brianondrako.com, obviously my name, my website has everything on it. The next book, so I have 2 books in production. I have a children's book, which actually I wrote about my older brother. And he's actually in the process. Now, it may not end up this way, but he's actually going to do the illustrations, which is pretty cool.
Cool.
So hopefully it works out and he's able to do those and we can get it working. And then I have my first kind of, you can call it like nonfiction, personal development type book I've been working on. So I probably early next year, I would say, realistically with these is the goal. But yeah, I love writing. If anyone liked, like just the conversation we have today, I do a blog 3 times a week. It's more of a micro blog. So I love like short form writing. I've challenged myself, like, how can I take an idea and dispel it down to like literally the simplest form. So like 1 to 5 minute reads max. So that's something. And then obviously still have the Just Get Started podcast. We're coming up on over 230 episodes and 4.5 years doing it. And oh my gosh, it's amazing.
Oh, so fun. So proud of you, Brian. You've got so many good things coming up. And I love that you and I have a very similar passion. And I love to say, I like to inspire the next generation. So anything where I can help someone just be better, that's what I want to do. And so the books that you're writing, the podcasts that you're creating, like you're definitely making that impact and that change, just like Jonas said, like being around people who create change.
Yeah, like yourself, bringing me on here. By the way, we might meet IRL later this year, right?
Yeah,
remember, I'm going to be out in Arizona, so
yeah,
we should try to make that work.
Absolutely, we'll be here. So for sure.
So.
Yeah, I love meeting up. I know Jonah Gray is moving out here too from Utah. So and Royce and Michelle already live here, so it's just so fun. It's so fun to be able to meet your peeps.
Yeah, well, it's been great connecting with you, and like I said, I appreciate the opportunity. I know I always enjoy following your stuff online, and I think you and I do have kind of similar missions in life.
Yeah.
So it's fun to connect on those and help where we can.
Absolutely. Well, I just want to say thanks again so much, Brian, for being here on Tisha Talks Live. Thank you to everyone who tuned in live to this on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and on YouTube. And to those who are going to be watching the replay, you can always find Brian. Like I said, his website is up. He is on LinkedIn. And I believe you're also on Instagram, all of those
Instagram,
channels.
Twitter. Yeah, I try, again, that's trying to figure out where the best way. I don't want to get too stretched in, but Twitter's actually been interesting just because, again, short form, trying to write very specific thoughts. So testing the waters.
So definitely connect with Brian. This guy is a wealth of knowledge, has so many great stories, and can definitely be in your corner. And if you have a kiddo, grab the book. You will not be sorry. It is so amazing. I've already passed it on to my niece to read it too. So thank you so much, Brian. Happy Friday to everybody. Have a great weekend, everybody. And we'll see you back next Friday. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.